What up, everybody, and welcome to Baz on Blades. My name is Baz, and I talk about blades. Today's featured blade is the TwoSun TS-45 Phalanx. This is a titanium frame lock flipper from TwoSun Knives. They are a Chinese manufacturer, and you can find these knives on eBay mostly, but they're also available across some of the Chinese sort of clearance house sites, the DH Gates, the GearBest, the AliExpress, those types of places. It looks like though eBay is about the best place to get these. You're going to have to go through the bidding, but sometimes you can snap one of these things for pretty cheap. This design right here, and I think you're going to find it's very much worth the money. A lot of times you can pick up around the $60 price point, and that's a hell of a deal on a titanium frame lock. Let's take a look real quick. We're going to knock out a look at the packaging. The packaging is a plain brown box. It's a plain brown box, guys. There's not really anything in it except for just a bubble wrap bag that is running away just like a wild animal. But that's what you're going to get with a TwoSun product. You are getting the value in the knife itself, not in the packaging. We'll throw that aside because, good Lord, we couldn't have messed that up anymore if we tried. So let's go back to this knife. Actually, we'll pull the packaging back in here, let you look at it. We'll go over the specs, knock out the boring numbers first. This is a full-size knife. You're looking at a 3 7/8 inch blade length, or 9.5 centimeters. The blade stock thickness, 150 thousandths, or 3.8 millimeters. The blade width is 1.14 inches, or 28.9 millimeters. The handle length. All right, we're going to break this down a little more than we typically do because of the way this knife is made. The handle length from here to the actual end of the handle is 4 3/4 inches. You add in this integral lanyard hole here, it's going to go up to 5 inches, and again 12 centimeters or 12.5 centimeters. All right, let's see what's next. Handle thickness, right on a 1/2 inch, guys, or 12.5 millimeters. The handle width at the widest point, which is up here at the pivot, is 1.15 inches or 29 millimeters. The closed width is very narrow. This is almost a fully nested blade. Again, up here at this end, the pivot end, and I did include the very small flipper tab. The closed width is 1.26 inches or 32 millimeters. The overall length is 9.5 inches, excluding the lanyard thing, or 9 3/4 inches with it, and that's 21.5 or 22 centimeters. The stop pin diameter, 137 thousandths of an inch, or 3.5 millimeters. Behind the edge was very thin on this knife. I got to tell you, this thing came sharp as a laser. It is 21 thousandths of an inch behind the edge thickness. Also, this knife, and I'll show you this later on in a review, this knife has absolutely the best handle to blade ratio of anything I've done on my channel this year at 0.81. Your weight is 4.51 ounces or 128 grams. All right, this is a night morning design. And, I don't know this guy, Night Morning, his design name. I don't know his actual name, but you can find Night Morning Design on Instagram. This is an actual individual that's doing this design work, and I like his design language a lot. Some things maybe I wouldn't have done, but overall, I like his design language. This is quite the knife, guys. Quite the knife, especially considering you can grab these for about $60. So material wise, what we're looking at in this 3 7/8 inch long drop point, sheep's foot, reverse tanto, whatever it is you want to call it, guys. You're looking at D2 blade steel. TwoSun uses a lot of D2, and they also, a lot of times they'll do an exact model in a premium version in M390 also. I do not know if that's available for this model or not, but I love D2. I'm not a D2 hater at all. I really, really like D2. When the heat treat and temper is right on D2, it is a slicing machine. D2 is a tool steel, of course. It's an older tool steel. It is not super complex. It is a semi-stainless steel. It just misses the stainless qualification by like 1 or 1.5% of chromium. So it's pretty stain resistant. You won't see any issues with it unless you're in an extremely wet or salty environment, or if you use it to cut something, maybe food prep, something that's acidic like tomatoes or something like that. In that case, or those cases, you will want to immediately clean it off. Other than that, just any light rust preventative or light coating of oil, and D2 is good to go. D2 has great edge retention. It will take a wicked sharp edge, guys. It cuts aggressively. It has good toughness. And like I say, decent corrosion resistance. So I really like D2. We'll go on to the handle. The handle, like most of or all of TwoSun's titanium frame locks, is in TC4 titanium. The backspacer is also titanium, and then you have a milled titanium pocket clip. And then your small hardware is stainless, and it's in a machined satin finish. All right, I'll go back to fit and finish on this thing, and I've had a few TwoSun knives come through my hand, and I'm going to say these newer night morning designs, and I don't think it really has to do with it being a night morning design. It's just sort of a new era for TwoSun. They are very finely made. I'm going to keep saying especially for the money, and I don't want to get into that negative connotation of an inexpensive knife that's, above and beyond what it is, because the fit and finish on this knife is as good as any titanium frame lock folder that you'll find on the market around the $200 price point. Whether it's American made, Chinese made, Japanese made, this knife really is batting above its pay grade. The fit and finish on this blade, I want to get up real close here. We've got a machine satin finish. It is extremely even. Okay, the grinds are extremely even. You can check the plunge there. It's got a, sort of a two-stage sort of flaring plunge. This knife blade was finished in a bead blast finish. You can see the recesses here in these decorative areas. And then everything else was re-hit and machined satin finish. So down in the recess here of this little blood groove / thumb area, it's decorative. And this sort of side mount jimping here, down in those recesses is bead blast, and then all the raised parts are machined satin finished, very well done. You can see it comes up to a very good tip. You've got a lot of blade material close to the tip. It is very sharp. Let's come up here. It immediately will catch with no pressure at all on skin. The edge on this knife is extremely well done, guys. It is very, very sharp from the factory. And at 21 thousandths of an inch, you can see it's taking my skin off when I touch it, guys. At 21 thousandths of an inch, behind the edge thickness, this thing is going to be a slicing monster. Even though it's 3.8 millimeter blade stock, you've got this super high flat grind. And man, I have not cut anything with this knife because it was brought through the channel for resale, and I wanted it to be brand new going out to whoever bought it. But I can tell you right now, this knife will cut. it will cut anything. So I think this blade is pretty utilitarian. It's continuous belly with a sharp tip, thin edge, finely finished. I just honestly, I don't see how it could be done any better than this on this blade, guys. So we'll go on to the handle here. What I'm seeing right here is a weight relieved handle, except the weight relief is on the outside. The typical pocket machining that you would see on the inside of the handle scales on knives to weight relieve them is actually done on the outside, and it's an aesthetic character part of the knife. This knife is extremely detailed, and I'm going to try to hit all of those things that I can, but you can see this handle scale is cleanly machined. The machining is very clean. It's got a bead blast finish. You've got this decorative stainless pivot. It's got a stainless detail ring around it. And then the pivot itself has a beautiful machine finish on it. We'll go ahead and flip to the back side. Also decorative, but it is a standard Torx bit to adjust it. As far as your small hardware, you've got what appears to be high quality stainless hardware, nice deep sockets on it. Looks to be very well made, guys, and actually the hardware is minimal. I've not taken this apart, but I would imagine since you only have the pivot on one end and a single screw on the other, there are some location pins for this back spacer. I would say a location pin on this end and then the screw locator on the back. All right, you see this machined pocket clip, very detailed with the weight relief sort of matching detail, and then a milled out hole here. Where's the mounting hardware for that? The mounting hardware, if I can catch this, you can see right there, it is mounted from the inside. Doesn't that look clean, guys? For as much detail as is going on this knife, it has very little showing hardware. Like I said, you've got the pivot on one end, you've got one screw on this end, and then you've got the mounting screw for the hardened lock face insert. That is now de rigueur for titanium frame locks. Just overall, guys, I mean, let's get up here real close and look at this, and we will go and give you the edges here. Notice these corners on the relief for the lock bar here. Everything is chamfered around the edges. Inside and out, both the inside edges and the outside edges are chamfered or faceted for comfort. Everything looks really good on this knife, guys. I mean, every little thing looks good on it. It's a very high level of machining work on this knife, and then the finishing on top of it is just fantastic. All right, let's look at the action. TwoSun knives, their frame locks are typically built on a ball bearing pivot. I believe they are ceramic bearings with a ceramic detent. This knife it's butter smooth, guys. No issue with the opening action. The centering is good. The lockup is good. There is no play of any type at all. I'll close that back down. You can look at the centering, and while we're looking at that, we're going to talk about the blade to handle ratio. Take a look at this centering right here. That is pretty much perfect. And then we're going to turn this around, and I want you to see how close that blade tip goes to the end of that handle. That right there, guys, is the reason that this thing has a 0.81 on the handle to blade ratio, which is fabulous. Fabulous, guys. They have stuffed every bit of blade into this handle that they can without you being able to poke yourself on the tip of the blade. In this back spacer, since we just touched on this handle to blade ratio, we'll cover this little lanyard loop titanium back spacer. Got this integral lanyard loop right here. You know what? I could have done without it. I'm not a lanyard guy, but it looks good there. It looks different. If you don't like it, you could probably take it off. I mean, it wouldn't be any big deal to grind it off, but with that handle to blade ratio, I would probably think twice about doing that. That's very, very close to the tip, guys. But I mean, you're not going to get a hold of it. I mean, there's no issue there. It's just crazy. They got so much blade into that handle. Now, this thing does have a very small flipper tab, and because the tab is smaller, it is not as mechanically efficient as a bigger tab would be. You're not going to get the amount of leverage you typically would. It is very particular about technique. There is no push button technique on this. It is all light switch. You can see right here, there's no issue at all with that. None, right? I mean, it's good action, guys. The D10 is perfect for that small flipper tab. It gives you a great balance on the action. All right, ergonomics. The ergos in a blade, for me, are how utilitarian the blade is. Again, 3 7/8 inches of D2 with a continuous belly, good, clean, sharp, workable tip, super thin edge with a high flat grind. You've got a good sharpening choil here that you can see does go out beyond the edge. For the most part, there's the slightest bit of edge flare right at the very termination of the edge, but that is a very slight. I think this will be a very efficient slicer. If you were going to cut some cardboard with this thing, I'm pretty sure your cardboard would jump up and run. That's how much of a slicer this is. As far as handle ergonomics, you don't really have a dedicated choil. You've got this sort of recess for the center part of the handle, which sort of creates a choil here. In my medium-sized hands, you can see I've got plenty of room. I don't feel like I'm going to slide up forward on the blade. My thumb, it feels very comfortable in a forward grip, and although you don't really have jimping on top of the blade spine, you do get sort of a jimping effect because of these side cuts. I'm going to be perfectly honest, these ball milled side cuts, if they would have continued those across the top, joining each side, it would have been perfect. Perfect jimping. I can tell you right now, that would have been really, really good. I wish they would have done that. You know, it doesn't kill the knife or anything. You still got a good purchase there, but I wish they would have done that. You've got plenty of room through the center of the handle here for large hands. Sort of a bird's beak, a widening at the back where you're not going to slip off the back of the handle. Like I say, the handle is a 1/2 inch thick, pretty much perfect. You know, you don't have any sharp spots, hot spot points on this clip. I think it's got plenty of clearance, but it's not so high off of the scale that it interferes at all in your grip. It doesn't bother me at all. Reverse grip, very comfortable, although because of that lanyard spot right here, you're not really going to butt cap it with your thumb. But the reverse grip itself is very good, sort of a reverse hammer grip. Now this is not a big heavy-duty working utility knife, but you could do some draw cuts with it, although your blade edge is going to be a little bit far away from your hand. But with this small flipper tab, you don't get a lot of intrusion into the web of your hand right here between your thumb and first finger. So it's actually very comfortable. It's a very wide open ergonomic handle, and I think it would be comfortable in a multiple of grips for work, in a multiple of hand sizes. Like I say, my hand size is medium, but there's plenty of room for large-handed guys on this one. Okay, so ergos, they're good, guys. You know, you've got a sort of a palm swelly, drop butt, so you're ergonomically, organically shaped. with all the wide faceting around the outside edge here. It gives you a comfortable edge of the handle. These inletted machine spots, actually, when you wrap your hand around it, you can very much feel those with your fingers, and they do aid in your grip. So ergonomically, I'm going to give it a good one, guys. It's a good to go knife right here as far as use goes, and a very slicey blade design. I just honestly, guys, I think that overall this is a very good design. Aesthetically, there may have been a couple of things I would have done different, but I can't argue with the quality of materials, the quality of the machining, the quality of the fit and finish, the action. I can't argue with any of it. I'm very much impressed with what TwoSun is doing and these night morning designs. I'm very impressed with this stuff so far. There's actually at least 2 or 3 other models that I'm going to try to move through the channel because I think TwoSun is, this Chinese company is not suffering from some mistakes that other companies are making. They are not doing derivative or quote-unquote rip-off designs. You're not seeing clones out of them or copies. You're seeing original designs built to a very high level of fit and finish with pretty doggone good materials. If you're going to pay $60 for this knife, think about it. There is no American-made product that is going to give you these materials and this level of fit and finish for $60, guys. Even on the low end, you're going to be well over $100 to $150 in an American-made product. And, God bless America. I want to support American-made product. But the people in China have to eat too. Everybody wants to boo-hoo on China and how they undercut everybody and they're destroying the United States, but they are people too. Just because we don't like their government doesn't mean that their people should starve. And their people are the ones that are making these knives. Not to get any deeper into this debate at all, I really don't want to be seen as supporting one way or another other than to say, I support everybody's individual choice, and I know not everybody has $200 to spend on a knife. Sometimes a $60 knife like this is what you can get, and guys, this is a spectacular knife for that amount of money. So you can expect to see more TwoSun product come through my channel in the not so distant future, I hope. And guys, once again, I thank you very much for taking the time to watch one of my videos. God bless all of you, and we will talk to you again.